Yo ho ho, holiday goblins. It is I, your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the coast to coast with the toast and the roast and the I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's Vlogmas still. I bet you thought I forgot because you haven't seen my face in a few days, but why should I be like everybody else and do this every day when I can do it every few days? Soda. So today's topic is when race had class. Yeah, that's a good one. Because here's a little known fact to you newcomers to our hobby. Once upon a time, and yet again in the retro movement with games like Lamentations of the Flame Princess and Dungeon Crawl Classics and Torchbearer and Mutants and Mongoloids and all the other stuff like that, races wore a class. That's right, there was none of these tiefling warlock sorcerers wielding two-handed swords that did 3d6 that could toss out 3d8 points of healings and were immune to boulders, Travis. No, 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 no. Back in the old days, first and second edition, and in some of the original playtests of third editions, and again in a lot of the retro clones, elf, dwarf, and halfling wore a class. You could not take levels in fighter or magic user or rogue or anything else if you were an elf or a dwarf or a halfling or any other race like carrot or orc or whatever. Your race was your class. You were a first level elf or a first level dwarf or a first level halfling or a first level carrot. And as you leveled in elf, you leveled in dwarf, you leveled in cleric. You couldn't take levels in the classes. Only humans could be wizards or fighters or rogues. Each of the races had innate racial abilities, and those racial abilities would get better as they leveled, but they weren't really as good as the actual classes. Halflings were kind of roguish with some fighty stuff, but mostly they were sort of watered down rogues. They could do some hidey stuff and some sneaky stuff and some thiefy stuff, and they had a few little thingies, and they could get to like 5th level, and that was it. Elves could do some magic-y stuff and arrowy stuff, and they were sort of the precursor to rangers, and they could get to like 9th level. And that was about it. They had their little magic-y stuff and their little bowie stuff. And they were sort of maybe kind of like ranger wizardy thingies, but that was about it. And dwarves were kind of fightery. They had a lot of hit points and they could take a lot of damage, and their saving throws were really good, but that was it. Humans were the only ones that could go to the max level, which in the old days was 10th, and then later on 15th, and later on 18th, and later on 20th. And they were the only ones that could take fighter and magic user and all the weird gobbledygook. Elves wore elf, and that was it. Your class was elf. You could not be an elf thief. There was no such thing as tiefling, warlock, sorcerer, psionicist. Nope, none of that crap existed in first edition and second edition. And all retro clones like Dungeon Crawl Classic or Lamentation follow through with the idea that elf is a class, dwarf is a class, halfling is a class, carrot is a class. You level up as a class. Races wore a class. Now, third edition tried to carry on this idea with a book called Savage Species, where every race's racial abilities were broken down as levels in a class, with the exception of humans. You could choose when you leveled each race to take a racial ability or a class ability. And therefore, you could take a very, very powerful race like dinosaur, but a first level dinosaur would not have all the abilities of the full 15 hit die dinosaur. No, you would be a 1 hit die dinosaur. In every level, you could choose. Do I want to take a level of dinosaur and become a 2 hit die dinosaur and gain the abilities of a 2 hit die dinosaur? Or do I want to take a level in a class like wizard? So now I'm a 1 hit die dinosaur and a first level wizard. Or I'm a first level wizard and a 1 hit dice dinosaur. And then when you level to 3rd level, you could choose. Do I want to take another hit die of dinosaur and get the abilities of a 2 hit die dinosaur? Or do I want to take another level in wizard? You didn't get all the dinosaur abilities until you bought all 15 levels of dinosaur, all 15 hit dice of dinosaurs. And you couldn't get all the class abilities until you actually chose, I'm going to take this level in wizard. You couldn't do both. Savage Species tried to copy the races class and break almost every one of, well, mostly it was the humanoid races. I mean, you know, really, dinosaur and gelatinous cube and stuff like that wasn't in there. It was really the humanoid races, but they tried really hard to break down the idea that every level in the race could be taken as a class. So you could play a sitar or a succubus or a skeleton or whatever, or a gelatinous cube swashbuckler or a mouse. And, you know, a goblin might only have 4 hit dice worth of levels and of abilities. And, you know, hit dice level 1, you get like a +1 dex and whatever, blah, 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 blah. To break down to be equivalent to or a little bit better, then it's right up in the 3rd edition Monster Manual. And that was Savage Species. And they tried to do it again in 4th edition. It didn't work quite out as well. Savage Species allowed some really broken combinations of class and race for people who knew how to break the system. We haven't seen it yet in 5th edition. It doesn't mean we won't, but right now we haven't seen it. But that idea that races were classes is still out there because we're still seeing it in a lot of the retro clones and a lot of the DIY and a lot of the hacks and a lot of the OSR games are hankering back to that idea that an elf and a dwarf and a halfling and the non-human races have all these intrinsic abilities, and when they level, they just get better at that innate magic, and only humans have the ability to do, you know, magic, thief, cleric, whatever. It's kind of like, you know, magic in the Dragon Prince game. Elves have innate magic, but humans don't. They have to, you know, they can do all the other stuff, you know, or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's late and I'm tired and I'm sick and it's Christmas and I just spent 3 hours in Target with my mom trying to buy sweaters. But think about that. And think about trying to pull that shit today. Trying to tell one of these little young punk Travises that, oh, no, I'm sorry, you don't get to level as a rogue and a warlock in this game if you're playing a tiefling. No, your class is tiefling, and you're a first level tiefling. And when you get 300 experience points, you'll be a second level tiefling. And these are the abilities you get at second level if you're a tiefling, Stephanie. They wouldn't know how to do it. They just, I don't know if players today could deal with that unless they had that OSR retro DIY mindset that, you know, this is kind of a cool idea because, yeah, I don't get the abilities of a wizard or a cleric, but my racial abilities get better and I can do elf stuff better. Because I know my friend Trenton Cunningham was always like, I do elf stuff. And I roll a d20 and I do elf stuff. Oh, I'm second level. Can I do second level elf stuff? So I think he'd be all over that. Like, oh, I want to take 3 levels in elf so I can do the walking on snow and not leaving a shadow and, you know, pass from tree to tree. I want 3 levels of elf. So I think that kind of guy would be totally into it, and I'd be totally into be playing like, yeah, I want to be a fucking 3rd level elf and be able to pass through trees and walk on snow and shit like that. But other players would be like, no, I want to be able to be a warlock, sorcerer, fighter, fire-breathing sandwich maker. But yeah. So there you go. I mean, that's just some information for you that once upon a time, the idea that non-human races could not take the classes. They could only level in your race. You were a 5th level elf, and that was all you could be. Think about that. Think about that. And think about trying to get today's players on board with that mindset. Could you do it? I don't know. I don't know if we could. Anyways, that is today's Vlogmas. I hope you are enjoying this madness. Stay safe during the holidays. I know it's crazy out there, especially with the traffic and the malls and the weather. So just take your vitamins and stay warm, stay dry, stay healthy, stay sane, and above all, I will talk to you later, losers.